Hello, Jason asked me to do a little explanation video for the Minera project that I did. Before I do, I would just want to say thank you very much, Jason. Very generous offer the website access. I also want to say that it's definitely not a composition. I very much improvised it and treated his context as like a super deadline kind of thing. It was like whoever does this first. So I was pretty much racing, which is not really a good way to compose. So it's very much improvised. A couple other details. I'm capoed at the 2nd fret, and I have a 7-string guitar with a low B extra string here. So basically, my roadmap here, all I did was write out some of his chords based on what he wrote online there. If you can see that, it's just basically a bunch of chords. And over the course of a few takes of trying to get something that I could live with, I stumbled on a few themes and things that I knew I wanted to use. So here's where they are. I basically started out in E major using chords from E major. I did C sharp minor, B, A, to the A flat or G sharp, same thing. Minera chord, pretty much like a Phrygian cadence kind of a thing. I started with a little melodic snippet. C sharp minor 9. There's like a B chord with some kind of pretty notes in there. An A chord with a 9th. And then this little melodic thing, the Minera chord. I repeated that so that it kind of sounded thematic and more like a composition, but also as a way to introduce the low notes of the 7-string guitar. So I did the same melody. I played a low C sharp, little trick for like a B chord, an A chord, and then a different voicing of the Minera chord. Then I think the next thing on the things to do was the A pedal business. I ended up settling with this kind of a thing. Jason said to include a little bit of the the D sharp note, and I did that by taking this chord here, which is B, E, E, 2 E's, and I lowered one of the E's to the D sharp, so that I had a little bit of that crunch going on in there. Sort of drop that D sharp to a C sharp note. So I basically, in my mind, I was playing with a fancy A chord, and then basically went to an E major 7 chord, D sharp, E, G sharp, and then drop that note to a C sharp. Basically repeated it again, that business. Went over here to an A major 7 with a sharp 11. I guess this would be a straight A major 7, and I used the sharp 11, that D sharp note. And this was really just kind of exploring some different sounds. I knew that I needed to set up the A7 flat 5 chord, which the first thing I did was just to work it out as such, where I did this was in my preparations, and it just sounded too much like a Vicente Amigo thing I had heard, so I tried to come up with something different, and I sort of stumbled on this idea. That sounds like someone else anyway, but basically I've got a G sharp note here with my A in the bass, and there's my G natural note. On the other string I had an E that I lowered to the D sharp note, so there's the flat 5th, and then I lowered it to the 3rd. So this right here is basically just a A7 chord. Resolve that to the Minera chord. The next on the list was to incorporate the A minor 6 chord. So I went back to this material. I wanted to sort of set up that A minor 6 chord where basically when I went to this A Lydian chord again, I actually introduced a D bass note, which kind of is funky sounding because it creates this interval here, a minor 9th. And the reason for the D bass note was I kind of consider an A minor 6 and a D7 to pretty much be the same chord. So in playing an A minor 6, which is this 4 minor chord, I also had the D7 notes available to me. And this was, oops, I'm sorry, here we go. That was the voicing I used. I used an F sharp, G natural, C, F sharp on top. So that's my A minor 6, D7, what have you. Then let's see, what else? There was maybe some picado, some improvised stuff in there. Again, sort of hitting on the C note that I sort of used throughout in different ways to sort of reference the Minera chord. And also, you know, it's the note in the minor chord. The A minor 6 chord would be spelled A, C, E, F sharp. So the C note was kind of cool to use there. See, what happened there? Then I think I did some more. Eventually I got myself to this Minera chord, and then basically did my A flat to an A to basically a B7 kind of a chord. B, A, F sharp, B, D sharp, and that got me into the E major tonality, and then I just played some Alegria stuff, some falsettas and ideas that I kind of copped from Antonio Rey, Vicente, whomever, and basically played around in E major, eventually getting to this kind of falsetta kind of thing, where I had heard a lot of falsettas that I liked that were kind of like, excuse me, this kind of thing for Alegrias. And it dawned on me, again, but sort of by accident, that because of the low B string, that I had this kind of sound. So did some of the things that I've seen Jason show me, which is basically, if that's my E major, and that's the 5th of the chord, I can raise the 5th of the chord. Incidentally, it gets to that C note again, so sort of using the C note as in different contexts. At some point, maybe I raised it up. These are just different things for Alegrias. When I did this thing on the B, I did the same business where I raised the 5th. And in the course of doing that, in some of the runs, I started sort of introducing this G natural note. For example, on like a B7 or something like that. Because basically I knew I was going to go to the Granaínas key, the E minor key, again because of the assignment, and also because it sounds good. And that note is the key note that differentiates E major versus E minor. The G sharp from E major becomes the G natural in E minor. So I was actually using that G natural note in ways, in other ways, so that when I went to minor, it didn't feel like it was completely out of context and out of the blue. So eventually, after playing some material in Alegrias, I sort of set up, by way of some kind of C chord to B chord business, the E minor tonality. The picado was simple, improvised. If I really composed it, I would have written something more intelligent than just... These are just, I don't know, playing around with tenths, I suppose, and using the open strings, incorporating a little bit of the C note, again with the C, playing some sort of A minor 7 C sounds, really just setting up a C to B to E cadence. Getting back to the E major, I knew I wanted to do something that was a little bit slicker than just plunk playing an E major. So I used this kind of a pivot chord, which is like an E major 7 with a sharp 5th. And to my ear, the sharp 5th note, which is again this C natural note, sort of ties together a little bit of the minor and the major tonality. And then I basically took it from the C up to the C sharp on that same chord, E major, raised 5th to the E major 6 chord. Then I was back in E major and just kind of played around a little bit. I think last on the checklist was Jason's mention of using a resolution to A-flat minor instead of the A-flat Minera chord. And then I think he had said use a G minor and then basically an F-sharp minor with a G. In my mind, the F-sharp minor with a G, F-sharp minor and A major are very similar. So I kind of used it more like an A chord with a G in the bass. But I failed to take advantage of something that he had said. He had said that you can take an A7 flat 5 and resolve that to the A flat minor. And to me that sounds good. I didn't use the A7 flat 9. I think I used like the A major 9, something like that. Not really happy with the way it came out, but again, just kind of improvised it, took a chance. Didn't work out that great. And so I basically just did this chromatic thing because I didn't really have anything better to do. I just failed to understand what would have been better. And it went A flat minor, G minor, to this A7 with G in the bass. I did a alza pua to try to finish it. My picado chops were just not happening to the whole thing. They weren't really popping, they weren't crisp. That needs a lot of work. Felt a little more confident with the alza pua, although that needs work too. But one thing that I really should have done is I played an F sharp minor and started my alza pua with a G sharp, basically making an F sharp minor 9. I should have done it with a G natural, and that would have been more in the sound, something like that. And I probably should have just done a nice alza pua. I should have worked it out and just resolved it, to the final Minera chord. I think in the moment it didn't really happen the way I wanted, so I went into sort of fix-it mode. Tried some other means of resolving, which I think was just to play that B chord to the A chord and resolve on the other Minera voicing. But again, I was just having fun with it, and I am not really considering this a composition, but hopefully it will become one. So thank you very much, Jason.